Hey, welcome to my channel where I post videos about my own experience as a diagnosed autistic human being from France. I feel like lately my introduction has been slightly different in every video. That's okay. I thought it was time to film a bit of an update both on how my disability benefits application process is going and just my general state, like how I'm doing and stuff. Sorry if you can hear my partner in the background talking. These days I mostly film videos when he has a phone call of some kind upstairs, because the rest of the time we're mostly together, to be honest. So I'm slipping back into burnout, y'all, and it sucks. I read a comment on one of my videos a while ago where someone was saying that as soon as they start recovering just a little bit from burnout, something else happens that like pulls them back into burnout, and that I feel like that's what's been going on these past few months, honestly. My burnout started about a year ago, shortly. Well, it's not clear when it actually started because I feel like it was several years in the making, but you know what I mean, like when it got debilitating enough that I couldn't do much with my life, was around a year ago. I really felt it when I went to see my in-laws in Switzerland in April last year for my birthday. And then it just went downhill from there. And I didn't do anything last summer. I focused entirely on recovering and resting and stuff, and didn't go to Bali as planned with my in-laws and my partner. And I regained a bit of my energy. And then we had to move from England to France at the end of August. So the whole month of August was spent just preparing for the move. And then I had a burnout relapse where it had gotten a little better, and then it got twice as bad as in the spring. My lowest point was definitely November. November was scary. I spent all day in bed for a few weeks. Even the thought of walking in the garden felt overwhelming. My sensory sensitivities were so bad. I felt like I had to wear sunglasses and noise cancelling headphones all day long every day. Like, I could not tolerate much. So yeah, that was definitely my lowest point. And then it got a bit better in December, but it was still not great. Then we had Christmas with my in-laws, which was really draining mentally and emotionally. And then I spent the month of January recovering from that. My energy levels weren't too bad at that point. And then February was like the best I've had this last year in terms of my energy levels. I was almost back to normal in February and started doing, lots of things again. Like, I was cooking more, I was cleaning more, I was exercising more, that kind of stuff. Started playing video games again. Then I started getting a bit tired again. I was like, ooh, I might have overdone it. I made a few videos about my disability benefits application with the MDPH in France. Basically, I did not intend to, well, I've been meaning to get it done as soon as possible, but I wasn't in a huge hurry, which is why I made an appointment, the closest appointment with the GP to fill out my health certificate was in August. And I was like, that gives me plenty of time. But then I was offered an appointment on March 20th, so a couple weeks ago. And so I was like, I jumped on the opportunity, not realizing all the work that would entail, and the fact that I didn't have the energy for it. What with working on my MDPH application, getting ready for the appointment with the GP, which was a huge source of stress and overwhelm, and then the appointment itself, which lasted an hour. Again, like, I made videos about all this. It destroyed me again. I did not have the spoons for all of that. I've been feeling it, and now I'm in this situation where it's time sensitive, because the health certificate is only, everyone says it's only valid for 6 months, but when I went on the official website, for some reason it said 12 months, but I'm not going to risk it. It's time sensitive, you know, and not only because of the validity period of the health certificate, but also because I need support. You know, I need the priority card, so I don't have to stand up in queues in shops and stuff, because that's just not something I can manage anymore. I need some financial support because I can't work. I don't want to depend on my partner forever, especially since he's been out of a job for a few months and he's in burnout himself now. So, well, like with me, it was several years in the making, and so we saw it coming, but it only really hit him these last few weeks, and now he's really incapacitated, you know, like we're in a very similar state now, which makes it difficult to do daily things, because back in November when I was stuck in bed for 3 weeks, he still had the energy to do stuff around the house, and I was already worried that that would really trigger or seriously worsen his already a pre-existing burnout, and it probably contributed to some extent. So now we're like both very tired, not having the energy to do much around the house, and also he is trying to apply for jobs and do interviews and stuff, and keeps failing the interviews because he doesn't have the mental energy, and he has the skill regression that comes with burnout, where he's ADHD, by the way. He's not able to do basic things that he used to be able to do no problem, and that's really frustrating for him, and so it's preventing him from being successful at job interviews and stuff, and he just doesn't have the motivation to work in that industry anymore, and like it's just a whole mess. So it's not been great. He's been struggling with his mental health because of all this, and just I wish I was out of burnout so that I could support him better, but unfortunately we're both in it now, which is kind of what I feared these last 2 months, but it is what it is. And yeah, so now I'm in this situation where I need to finish my MDPH application. I need to send it. I need to be able to receive support and stuff for my disability, but I don't have the energy to do it. I've done a good amount of work on it already, but it's not done, you know. Well, I initially started filling it out, like the PDF, on my laptop, and then realized that I could fill it out online, so that's what I've been doing these last few days. And last time I worked on it, a few days ago, maybe Thursday, Friday, I had a shutdown while working on it. That's how overwhelmed, and it wasn't even like, it was just regular stuff, like just filling out the form, but my brain can't handle it right now, so I had a freaking shutdown. And I think a while, like not so long ago, I wouldn't have known that it was a shutdown. I'm really trying to figure out what shutdowns look like for me, because for the longest time I was like, oh no, I'm a meltdown type of autistic, I don't get shutdowns. But now I'm like, don't I? I think I do. They just don't look like the stereotypical shutdowns of like freezing and not being able to get words out at all, and not being able to move, and like being kind of in a frozen state. That's not really what happens with me. I think for a long time I just didn't know what was going on. My whole life I've had these physical manifestations, physical symptoms that I didn't know what they were, that for the longest time I thought were linked to physical health, because that's kind of what's drilled into your head in this neurotypical driven, neurotypical centric society that we live in, is if something's wrong with you, it has to do with physical health, or it's just anxiety, you know, and depression, and there's nothing else going on. So for the longest time I had these weird ass symptoms, and when I think about it, those were mostly when I was like overwhelmed, you know, like after a long day at uni, feeling excluded, socially, having to be on public transport for 3 hours every day, sometimes finishing school at 8 p.m. and not being able to go home because it would have been too late. So instead I would go to my great aunts who lived closer to uni than my parents, and I would get there and I would be shattered from the day and overwhelmed from the day, and I would get these weird symptoms where I felt numb and I felt just a overall like discomfort in my body, and I didn't feel like myself, all these things. And so I would panic and I would go get a blood test done because I've been a vegetarian for years, and so that's also something else that's been drilled into my head, is that vegetarian, especially in France, where the meat culture is so strong and vegetarians are seen as such weird people. My first thought would be instantly, oh, I have these weird symptoms, which means I'm physically unhealthy, which means I must have a deficiency of some sort because I'm vegetarian. Makes sense, right? So I would get a blood test done and it would all come back normal, no deficiency or anything. And then I would just be like, so now what? What is it? And I never found out. I guess I just assumed it was stress or something. And now I still get these moments, these symptoms. I'm like, I talked about it to ChatGPT and it was like, yep, those are autistic shutdowns. So that really opened my mind to it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it explains a lot. So the other day I was working on my MDPH form application, and that's what happened. I started feeling dizzy. I don't often feel dizzy, but I started feeling dizzy, physically numb in my body. It wasn't food related because I had eaten really well that day. So it wasn't like that I hadn't eaten enough or that I had a blood sugar drop or anything like that. And they don't look like that anyway. I know that when I haven't had enough to eat, usually it's like I'll get the shakes, I'll get like symptoms of low blood sugar and that kind of thing. It wasn't like that. And so I stopped working, tried to regulate myself, with my weighted blanket and stuff, stimming and stuff, and it went away. I was like, oh, I have been getting shutdowns this whole time. That's what they look like. I have had a few times in my life where I can't get words out, or it's not that I can always do it, but it feels like I'm pushing the words through slime or whatever, and it's difficult to get the words out. I have experienced that, which I think is also a sign of shutdown. It does not happen to me very often, and I feel like also there have been times when I was extremely extremely overstimulated and dysregulated, had a meltdown type episode or a panic attack type episode, and then it was followed by a shutdown. And I didn't know that it was a shutdown, and so I just assumed that my energy was just depleted. Shortly before Christmas, I made a video about how my whole life I thought I was dealing with anxiety, and it turned out it was overstimulation. And I mentioned this one time when my in-laws visited in the summer, and I just masked non-stop for a week, and on the last day I broke down, if you will, and I had a meltdown / panic attack. And then the following day I could not look anyone in the eye, I could not utter a word or have a conversation, I could not make a single facial expression. I was just in shutdown, and I didn't have the word for it until now, which seems surprising because like it's so obvious now looking back that it was a shutdown, but I don't know, it hadn't clicked for me yet. I had a pretty clear understanding of what my meltdowns look like, but I didn't know what my shutdowns looked like until now, which is good because now I have a better understanding of myself in those moments and what to do about it. In the past, my first thought would be to eat something or to drink or whatever, or to get physical rest or whatever. And now I know I need like active nervous system regulation. It's just a different strategies. So that's been good, but it means that, like I said, I get really overwhelmed when I start working on my MDPH application. So since I had my shutdown the other day where I felt really dizzy and stuff and numb, I haven't really had the energy to go back to work on my application, to be honest. Over the weekend, my partner and I had a Lord of the Rings marathon. I posted a short about it, and it was super cool, and I loved it. In case you don't know, one of my main special interests is fantasy, and I grew up in the 2000s, so my all-time favorite special interest slash comfort movies are things like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Twilight and Shrek and things like that, like where you have like several movies that you can watch all at once, or like one a day over a week and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's like that for other people, but for me, my special interests, I feel like sometimes I have, like, imagine a container that just, like, you can fill up or empty. My special interests, I feel like when I engage with them, when I do these movie marathons, for example, or when I learn things about autism or that kind of thing, that container fills up. And then when I don't do it for a while, it empties. And if it gets completely empty, I can get pretty depressed. That's why we often say that autistic special interests are more than just hobbies, because neurotypicals don't have that kind of relationship with their interests or their passions or whatever. I don't feel like it's something that makes them actively unhappy when they are not able to engage with them as much as they'd like to. So for me, it looks like it feels like an obligation. Needing to have these kinds of movie marathons multiple times a year, and I feel like every time the level goes up in my container of, it's not a very good analogy, but the level goes up, then I feel better, and then over time it decreases and I have to fill it back up when I'm not doing as well, or there are more stressful things going on in my life or whatever. I need to fill that container more often. And when I'm doing pretty well and like there's not my life is going pretty well, there isn't anything too stressful, I don't need to fill it up quite as often because it doesn't empty as quickly. I don't know if that makes any sense. For example, if I'm doing well, I might not have one of those movie marathons more than a couple times in a year. And when I need more of that comfort, that it brings, I might do it like 4 times, like once every 3 months, and I try to make an event out of it. Like, we started really embracing it and like putting our phones away so that we can be 100% focused on the movies and there's no distractions, which is also more restful for our brains that can't handle multitasking while in burnout. And we try to make a special event out of it. We try to get comfortable. We light some candles. We grab some snacks and stuff. So that was really cool. So we did that over the weekend. Now is it Tuesday? I haven't had the energy to work on my application this week so far. I'm just back to that state I was in a few months ago, like waking up. I need to get that fly out of the house because it's driving me crazy. The fly is out, the cats are in. So yeah, as I was saying, I'm back to a place where I wake up in the morning and I don't have any spoons for the day. So yeah, and I have moments during the day, like in the afternoon or in the evening, or sometimes even in the morning, where I'm like so exhausted, like physically and mentally exhausted, and not able to tolerate much stimulation wise, I get overstimulated very easily. Just back to where I was a few months ago, which isn't super nice because I thought the worst was behind me. But yeah, like I said, I think the fact that I unexpectedly dedicated so much time and energy to the fly is still here. Oh my goodness. I'll let the cats handle it. The fact that I unexpectedly had to spend so much time and energy on my MDPH application out of the blue, because I thought I had 5 months to do it, and turns out I only had a week, like, to prepare for the appointment. Yeah, that depleted what little energy I had. Now I'm like, now what? What do I do? Because if I try to work on my application, I get a shutdown, or I'm just too exhausted. It takes me a lot more effort than usual to focus on what I'm doing, and like walking through the brain fog, of like having to concentrate twice as hard to understand basic things, and having no short-term memory, all those great burnout symptoms. Also, the people I contacted about my application to try and get supporting documentation, for example, proof that I dropped out of my master's degree and stuff like that, nobody got back to me. And the only person who got back to me was like, oh, I can't do anything for you. Because I also asked for my medical records in the UK and in France, which would be so important to get, not only for my application, because it might help to prove things like when I had my nervous breakdown at uni, but also for myself, like, because I'm sure there are things in there from my early childhood that I don't know about. I would be very interested to find out. So I requested my medical records and also the ones from the UK, even though I didn't go to the GP a whole lot, but it still has like my prescriptions for antidepressants, and it should have also like information about when I did therapy for like CBT for my trauma and stuff. So it should have some information on there that I can use. And they said they would send it within a month, which is a long time. And everyone else just hasn't got back to me. So I don't know, I'm just feeling so tired and kind of discouraged a bit. I'll probably have to chase some of these people, especially like the French administration, French universities and stuff. They don't care. They don't care, and they're so hard to get a hold of. I remember when I had to deal with university administration back when I was at uni in France, it was just such a battle every time. So I'm not surprised that they're taking forever to get back to me, if they get back to me at all. And it's just stressful to not know what to expect and to have that uncertainty. The validity, the credibility of my application highly depends on that supporting documentation, because I can say whatever I want. If I don't have anything to prove it, they don't have to believe me, They don't have to believe that I dropped out of uni because it was too much. So it's very important that I get that supporting documentation, but I have no idea if they'll send those to me, when they will send those to me, that kind of thing. So like, how long should I wait? When should I chase them? How many times should I chase them? That kind of thing, and like, I don't want to have to wait months to be able to send my application, but also at the same time I don't have the energy to finish it. So it's just like I feel stuck. Like, a lot of my experience in autistic burnout involves feeling stuck, feeling paralyzed. There's this and this and this that you want to do, that you need to do, and you can't do it for whatever reason, because of a lack of energy, a lack of the required skills. It's just a whole struggle, and I don't even have certainty that it will work out, that the application will be approved. The other day I heard I read a comment on a French video from a French autistic content creator, and that person was saying that where they live, because it all depends on the region you're in, which is ridiculous, but here we go. That's the French administration. They were saying that where they live, the MDPH doesn't basically doesn't recognize autism as a disability because they just don't give the AAH, which is what I'm asking for, which is financial support when you can't work full time. So basically, in that region, I don't know where that person lives, but they said that their MDPH basically doesn't recognize that autistic people can't work full time, which is basically the same as them saying it's not an actual disability. And when I hear stuff like that, it just discourages me so much and depresses me so much because I'm like, what's the point of fighting with these people who don't even understand the most basic aspects of autism? Like, some people have to fight years, like Joanna en Pyjama, who's an French autistic content creator I follow. She had to fight 2 years with the MDPH to get recognition that she couldn't work full time and that she was her autistic daughter's carer and that she needed financial support. Like 2 years of fighting, having to go to court to prove her case. Like, how do you do that when you're in burnout? How? Just the thought of it overwhelms me. I'm like, we have to constantly prove that our struggles are real, that they really exist, that they're really disabling, and it's so exhausting. I just finished reading Fern Brady's memoir. I don't remember what it's called. Oh, Strong Female Character, I think it's called. And it was great. I highly recommend it. And one of the things she was saying towards the end is like how still in 20, I think she wrote it in 2022. Now we're in 2025. In most of modern society or society in general, like autism is still so misunderstood, dismissed as not being a real disability just because neurotypicals struggle to put themselves in our shoes, basically. That's what it comes down to. And then they accuse us of, struggling with empathy and stuff, but like, excuse me. I really hope things will get better in the future and we'll get to a point where we don't have to put our health at risk to prove to other people that our struggles are real, because that's what it is at this point. Like, having a diagnosis from a doctor isn't even enough sometimes. Like, what more do you want? Like, if you have a physical disability, I doubt the MDPH makes such a fuss about you not being able to work full time and that kind of thing, because they're like, yeah, well, this person is obviously disabled, but if your disability is invisible, like in autism, it's basically like they're saying like, oh, these people are just pretending to be disabled, but they're not really. And like, even if you have like legit medical proof of it, they're like, nah, I don't believe it. I just feel a little bit discouraged, I'm back to really having to spare my energy, especially my mental energy, a lot. Like, being very strict with the things I do during the day, like the things I subject my brain to throughout the day, not reaching a state of overstimulation. I just hope that I don't go back to having to stay in bed for weeks, like in November. ChatGPT says that when you have a burnout relapse in your recovery, it typically doesn't get as bad as it did initially. Like, it's saying that it won't get as bad as it was in November for me, because that was my lowest point, and then I went back up, and now I have like a small relapse, but it shouldn't get as bad as it was in November. So I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that it's true. There isn't much I can do except watch my comfort movies, spend some time with my partner. We're still binge watching Alone. We're on to season 9 now. Like I said, we kind of have the same struggles now because he's also in burnout. And trying to keep ourselves fed, trying to keep the house in a somewhat acceptable state. But yeah, I can feel that it's getting harder and harder to get things done during the day. I've had a pretty solid morning routine these past few months, and I'm starting to not have the spoons for it. Even though I get around 10 hours of sleep every night, it just feels like it's never gonna end, you know? Frustrating when you feel like you're finally coming out of it. Like a few weeks ago, I posted a video like, coming out of burnout. Wow, I can't believe it. I have energy again. And I'm like back to not being able to do anything. It's so incapacitating, like being like, if I had to go into town today for something, I wouldn't be able to. Like, it's not even a matter of like, it costs me a lot, or like, no, like I physically cannot. Like at the end of 2024, where I didn't leave the house for like 2 months, except for like a 5-minute walk here and there around the house. I hope I'll be able to finish my application and send it, and I'll receive the supporting documentation I asked for, and I'll just keep resting. It's just so frustrating because I'm like, I want to figure out what my life looks like now I know I'm autistic outside of burnout, you know? Like, I know that I'm not gonna have such a low level of energy forever. Like, I'm aware that sometimes it takes a while. Some people are in burnout for literal years, but it's not gonna be forever like that. There's gonna be a point where I go back to a sort of baseline, you know, which is gonna be different than before burnout. Definitely before I knew I was autistic, I was doing things that weren't good for me. There's gonna be a point when I'm able to do things again, you know, like start projects and maybe go on holiday, things like that. Things that I'm not able to do, haven't been able to do for this past year. Anything creative, anything like that. Even playing video games is too much when I'm feeling that low, because I just don't have, like, it's part of the skill regression, right? Like I'll try playing a video game and it's not, you know, like it's not super difficult, it's not super complicated, but my brain can't comprehend what I'm supposed to be doing, or I get lost really easily because I can't remember where I went, like how I got there, and just I struggle to get a grasp of the mechanics of the game. It's just too tiring. So I know there's gonna be a point when I regain enough energy that I'm able to start living my life somewhat normally again, like able to have exciting projects and do fulfilling things. I just don't know when it's gonna happen, and it's frustrating because, like I said, I feel like I got my diagnosis, I figured out I was autistic. I was like, yay, great, I know myself better now. And burnout, and I haven't been able to really experiment with my life much because I've been so incapacitated by burnout. And also I'm aware that things could be a lot worse. I'm very grateful for what I have. I'm well aware that I'm very privileged. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about, so I'm probably gonna end this video now. It's not even noon. I got up at 10:30 this morning. I did like a basic routine. Like, basically lately I've been taking a full body shower 3 to 4 times a week, like every other day. And then on days when I don't take a full body shower, I just do a quick wash. That's not a full body shower, if that makes sense. And so it's one of those days where I did a quick wash, and like I brush my teeth real quick, I apply some moisturizer on my face, and that's it. Like, that's my morning routine. I did not do anything else today. I did my morning routine, came downstairs, made myself a cup of tea, sat on the terrace for 10 minutes, and then I came in and started filming this video. That's all I've done today. I'm shattered. It just feels so frustrating to have so little energy. I know it's been a year, but I'm still getting used to it. Neurotypicals don't realize how disabling it is to be so low on energy. When you don't have energy, you can't do much. You can't do anything. You can't do a lot of the things you want or need to do. Like, the lack of energy in itself should be recognized as a disability, even if it's like not linked to anything else. Like, just even if autism wasn't disabling in itself, just the sheer fatigue that comes with burnout, or just existing in this world as an autistic person, just should be recognized as a disability in itself. Like, I don't think any of us are made to work full-time. Neurotypicals struggle with that, let alone autistic people. We're just not meant to function in a society where you're supposed to work 40 hours a week. Even 35 hours a week in France is a lot. I don't think a lot of autistic people can do that their whole life like neurotypicals do. I feel like I'm rambling. I feel like my thoughts are going all over the place. So I'm gonna end this video now before it ends up being an hour and a half long. I feel like I said everything I had to say. I'm gonna go spend the rest of the day doing nothing and resting. What a fascinating life, but at least I'm alive. Grateful to be alive. Yep, could be a lot worse. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.